Hello and welcome to the I Am Evolution podcast. Spirit guide and soul sage Raina shares the knowledge of the universe to awaken and raise consciousness within. All of us have forgotten who we are and why we are here. But if we open our minds to new knowledge, we can use duality to achieve different perspectives to regain our unity. When we expand our awareness within, our possibilities become limitless. Let's begin to remember who we truly are and fulfill our mission and purpose to become conscious. And now, let's start the show.
All right, everybody, and welcome to the I Am Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Raina, and I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. If you are a subscriber to the show, well, welcome back. And if you're new, well, welcome. I'm so thankful for all of you to be here. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I was kind of a little nervous with it because you guys know I used to do this podcast constantly every week. And then, as everything happened, but there's a lot of changes in me lately, and a lot of things have changed in me as far as health-wise, emotional, mental, consciously, everything. And I just feel strong again. I mean, I still got things to work on. I still got things with health and everything like that. But the 9-day difference that I've been feeling a lot lately has just felt so amazing, guys. And I can't put it into words. But let's get into tonight's show. I'm going to try to keep it around a half hour, 40 minutes, somewhere around there. I'm getting my stream blocked over here. I'm trying to figure out where this is all going, if it's all heading out over here. And but tonight is called When 3D Cannot Hold the 5D, the truth about spiritual rejection. And throughout our evolution, we are going to experience a lot of different things, and one of them is a topic that a lot of us, we don't talk about. We always talk about, hey, when we're going through an evolution, when we're changing, when we're awakening, it's all sunshine and rainbows and everybody is happy and joyful and all these things, but it's just not true. So today I want to talk about a form of pain that many of us don't understand: spiritual rejection. Because every single one of us who are evolving are going through some form of rejection. And oftentimes this shows up as abandonment, isolation, or emotional disconnection, especially those walking the higher path, right? And I guarantee you, if you watch this show and you've been following this show, or you're new to this show and you're on the real path to this, then you understand exactly already where this show is going and what I'm talking about. Because as I've been talking with myself, my eye and my guides and everything, and just working through a lot of the residue, as I call it energetic residue, and that I realized that there was so much built in still that needed to be cleaned out. And what was popping up for me a lot was all these times of rejection that happened to me in my life. Because if I went into every story with you guys, my life is just honestly, it's like one big rejection. And that's okay. But for a long time, that was something that I had problems with. And, and as I grew, I realized, well, the 3D can't hold the 5D. And no one talks about the truth about spiritual rejection. And although we take it personally, it's not personal. And we're going to discuss kind of why it's not personal. But this is something that we really, really have to get to understand, that's not personal. Because trust me, guys, I know it. I know it's hard. I feel it. I've been soul crushed before many times, and I'm going to get into some of the examples of how people rejected me. And again, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't want you to go, oh, poor Raina or whatever and stuff like that. It was all part of my evolution, and it all brought me to this point of understanding. And that's the shift we got to kind of have, right? Because as we're growing, as we're evolving, we are going to lose the disc. We're going to lose the world that we once know. It's kind of like as you grow up, right? When you're a teenager, well, you don't do the things a 5-year-old does and think that way. And why? Because as you evolve, you no longer have need for those things. But the problem is as we're aging and as we're evolving, we're trying to connect. We're trying to find this connection, right? And we're trying to fit in, but really it's about soul connection. But we're trying to do this, and all of a sudden we're finding that a lot of people don't like our energy. We rub people the wrong way. People don't like us for absolutely no reason. And you guys know I've talked about the I Hate Raina fan club for many years, and and it's just and people, because we're gonna get into why that happens. But first, let's talk about why 5D frequency and 3D frequency cannot match, like the differences between it. Because what is 3D? 3D is ego-based, right? People that live in the 3D world, because remember, now that the great push is upon us, the worlds are splitting, right? There are two separate worlds. There's the 3D world and the 5D world. And, we all like to think that as we're growing, we're in the 5D world, but we have to be realistic. The 5D world is really hard to achieve, but it's not impossible, but it is hard to achieve because it really takes a lot of deep soul work. That's the type of soul work that I've been doing on myself for the past 5 years. And you guys have known with my journey the last 5 years, the health issues I've had, mental, physical, emotional, like all that stuff. And it has been just a constant bombardment of things that I've had to put myself through, trials, tribulations, all that stuff, in order for me to prepare for myself for this moment. And the third dimensional world is, well, at first let me say this. We don't live in the 3D world, we experience it, right? Just like, because if we lived in the 3D world, we wouldn't be here. And just like the dimensions that a lot of us, we think that we're going to this 5D world, like we're just going to magically float away and all of a sudden live in the 5D world. And that's not. It's about experiencing it. So you're still going to live here on Earth, but you'll have a choice whether or not you're going to live in the third dimensional world or the fifth dimensional world. That was my dyslexia, right? And but the third dimensional world is ego-based, right? It is fear-driven, it is conditional, and the 5D world is heart-centered, it is expansive consciousness, it is soul work, it is all the things that I have been putting myself through in order for my soul to evolve. And unfortunately, that has left a lot of casualties in its wake. I have had to walk away from so many people and so many things in my life in order for me to get to this point. And this is part of something that you're going to have to go through. So let's talk really quick about some of the key traits of being a third dimensional. And I really want you to keep an open mind to this, to see like, if this is something you really do, because it's easy for us to say, no, I'm 5D, I'm a spiritual guru, I know everything. And that right there is how we know we're still in the third dimension. Because why? 3D people are identity based, right? They care about titles, roles, external validation. They take spirituality and they business it, they mark it up, package it in as a business, and their whole validation of being spiritual is based on their business, right? And they really believe that if they connect and they make all this money and they do all this success and everything, that all of a sudden they're going to show everybody and feel accomplished. But that's not at all what the 5D evolution and awakening truly is. So remember, the 3D world is identity-based, titles, roles, external validation. The next thing is attachment, right? Because we're attached to things. We're attached to our bodies. We're attached to this life. We're attached to cars, jobs, people, relationships, etc. All of this can go away tomorrow. And yes, part of me would have to mourn that because it is sad, because I've worked hard for some of this. But at the end of the day, none of this, not even this body, is as important as who I am in the inside and what I want from me. And that's the difference, because we're attached to the outcomes of things. Well, in order for me to be spiritual, I have to be positive. I have to do these things. I have to act this way. In order for me to do this, I can't act this way. I got to control everything, right? It's fear-based, right? And then the judgment sets in, because that's another one. Judgment is constant, people. It is about judgment of self. It is judgment in politics, religion, spirituality. And let me tell you something. There are times when I teach classes amongst awakened people, And the look I get when I start talking about something that either goes against what they've already accepted to believe to be true, or that they've had never heard something, the look I get, like the fear, like I just sprouted another head, and and I'm turning into this ugly monster. And they take a step back, and their eyes get big, and that's the judgment of self. Because 5D people are open, we're expressive, we welcome new information to give us different perspective, and we're going to get into that in a little bit later. But the emotional aspect of a third dimensional person is reactive, right? And often unresolved. They push everything down, they push everything away, and then they get everything, and everything is a big deal. I have met so many people that everything in the world is the end of the world, right? And I bet you $100 that I know that you guys know one or two or more people that are like that. But they're all emotionally reactive. Everything is fly off the handle. Everything is, I'm going to prove how much of a badass I am. I'm gonna show you this. I'm tough. You know, I'm cool. Look at my car. All these things. That's the emotional reactiveness. But the beliefs. And one of the biggest things is that I hear all the time, why does the world keep punishing me? Why does this thing keep happening to me? Because in a 3D world, the belief is, well, it's happening to me, not for me, right? And that's one of the biggest differences in the comparison. I have a friend who I love to death who really believes they're 5D, and they're not, because this is one of the fundamental things. They're very emotionally reactive. They're judgmental. They know it all. They act like they know it all, and you're the dumbest person in the world. And I love them to death. So I just kind of roll with it at times, because I understand that their evolution, they're trying to feel something. They're trying to be a part of something and connect with self. But this is one of their fundamental hang-ups, is everything happens to them. They're always the victim to their experiences. Everything is happening to them, and that they can never get out of it, and it's never happening for them. And that's the mindset we got to change, because when you really wake up, yeah, it's happening for us, baby, all for us. So two things I want to touch on is the truth is rigid, because it's based on logic and proof, but it really has no logic. It really has no proof. It's just kind of whatever society tells them, they just accept it. If the TV says it enough, if the society says it enough, if they hear it from their friend, they automatically accept it. It's very rigid. There's no bend. It's their way or the highway. And relationships are transactional. And what that means is it's built on needs and conditions, right? So if I'm in a relationship and you're supposed to fix me, and you're supposed to act a certain way and do certain things. Like if I'm in a relationship with a male, well, that's the man. The man's supposed to do certain things, and you're supposed to do certain things for me. And I'm the female, and I'm supposed to do certain things for you because I'm a female. Or if I'm dating another woman or whatever, and that, like, if the gender equality isn't equal, and the person isn't equal, and things are conditional, built on needs, and then this is a huge sign as well, because this is why relationships fail and be toxic. We have to start looking at who we really are, because the rejection comes from this idea. And I really want you guys to understand the difference. And the reason why I'm going over the third dimensional traits versus the fifth dimensional traits is because when we get into the rest of the show about rejection, I want you to understand what is actually happening, and we'll get into that. So remember, it's heavily, and that's what I want you to take away. The third dimension is heavily influenced by physical sense, ego, identity. Life is linear. There's good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, success, failure, backwards, forward, etc. And everything that they go through is through the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, the fear, survival, and the separation. I'm separate from you. You're different from me, and that. The 5D consciousness, remember the experience of it. We're not going to the fifth dimension. We are going to live it here. And technically, the one world is displaying itself because it can do that energetically. And the people that are moving to the 5D world are going to start experiencing higher frequency of awareness. They're aware of what's going on, not just around in the world. They're not looking on YouTube and Yoohoo and all that stuff and reading the news every day. They're aware, but the most important awareness is in within self. That's why I stopped this podcast for the past 5 years. One, to focus on my health, and two, to go within and focus on the conscious awareness, because it's rooted in unity and love and energetic truth. It doesn't care. The 5-dimensional world doesn't care about, what president is good or bad and what's going on in the world and who did this and who did that and what the Kardashians did, and no offense to them or whatever and that, but the world doesn't care about these things. And so we move beyond duality, right? Because we've always talked about how life is a dualistic idea viewed of perception, right? And so we move beyond that, and we start to realize that everything that we're experiencing is one, and we're connected to that one by ourselves, because we are that self. So everything that I have here, my phone, everything is me, and you are me, and I'm talking to myself, and you're listening to yourself talking, and so this is how the consciousness rolls in. Because remember, in the 3D world, we're chasing everything. We're chasing money, success. We're chasing the idea of feeling important, to feel loved, etc. But in the 5D world, where consciousness, we don't chase, we become. We embody that. We embody the inner workings. We embody who we are. We embody everything, and then we surrender to it. Because yes, it is healthy to have an ego. It is. This talk about getting rid of the ego is nonsense. You need the healthy side of the ego. What you don't need is the chaotic side of the ego that's screaming for attention and attachment and all that stuff. So there is a difference. So let me go over quickly a couple of the 5D traits, and I kind of talked about them a little. But remember, your identity is rooted in the soul. It's not rooted in your story. And that's why I've told you, if you've listened to this podcast since 2012, you understand that I've been talking about how I change and transform all the time. And the Raina that you're seeing today is not the Raina that you saw when I stopped the podcast. I am a totally different Raina. My story has changed. My soul has changed. My consciousness has changed. My awareness has changed. It's grown. It's transformed in so many different ways, because I look at myself and I look inside. And so I'm going to ask you, and I want you to be truthful right now. How many of you truly look at yourself and see what's inside? How many of you can point out your judgments, your insecurities, your fears, the residue, the energetic residues that are still lingering from past experiences, the attachments to things? Because that's the key. You have to detach from everything. Caleb, when I was Caleb's teacher and mentor and everything, and even still, he asked me, he's always like, he sees that I just gave up everything. I walked away from my lifestyle, from my family, from people that, friends-wise, that no longer connected, no longer vibed to me. And everybody was like, Raina, what are you doing? Like, you're just giving up. And even he said, like, you just walked away from everyone. How do you do that? Because there's no attachment. Because I take things, and this is part of the evolution, is understanding that. So I want to get into a couple things, because when we're getting rejected, it is about frequency, okay? We understand that everything is vibration, right? And how we act and what we do and how we react, how we think, carries off a frequency. It resonates, right? We understand that. We hear that through our life, right? We understand that. Even everything electronically gives off frequency, right? Even these laptops and the phone give off EMFs and everything like that. It all gives off a frequency. Well, so do we. And so it is our time to understand, now that we're evolving, what frequency is and why it does what it does. Because when we're growing up and we're not fitting into people, places, things, because let's be honest, you're never going to fit in. Why? Because you're not meant to, right? So frequency is everything. And you have to start to detach yourself from it's happening again to me to it's happening for you. And this is the trick, because I'm going to share a little bit. I was talking with And a bunch of things, a bunch of past experiences of my rejection came up. And these rejections came up of the time when joined a softball team in Boca. And within the first 3-4 games of the season, I think there was like 20 during the season or 15, and that one of the girls said something about, I had a talk with her and told her, yes, I'm gender fluid and, and non-binary and that, and she asked me, she's like, well, did you ever think about becoming a man or anything? I was like, well, I thought about that, but I like being able to be fluid with anything. I don't care about gender. Well, she went back and told everybody and opened her mouth all about me and everything like that. And I went to the next game and nobody would talk to me. I literally would go up to people and they would literally act like I didn't exist, like they couldn't hear me. Or if they did look at me, they would turn around, grab their phone and start playing on their phone, or get up and literally walk away from me like I was a POS. And that kind of rejection hurts. And things like that have happened to me throughout my entire life. And I looked at it and I started seeing myself, and at the time, that when we're younger and we're not understanding what's happening with frequency, and we're just taking experiences as face value, it hurts us, right? Because we start to attach ourselves to this identity that nobody loves me, nobody wants me, I'm not good enough for myself, nobody likes me, nobody wants me around. Where do I fit in? Right? Because like that's what I was asking myself, Raina, where do you fit in? Your whole life, every time you try to make a friend or belong to a group, everyone always pushed you out. Like you weren't, like you had leprosy, or like you had some virus that you were gonna give them. And it's funny is, you ever watch the SpongeBob episode with the mad snail disease, and they all think that they got bit by Gary the snail, and they all think that, and then they're all, the ones that haven't, they're all hiding and running away and locking the door and keeping the ones that are going mad snail disease, and and so like that kind of reminds me of how I felt. Like I had like mad snail disease my whole life, and people were just like pushing me away and doing things, and it was just so much that happened so often that I always thought it was me. But I learned that frequency creates resonance, and that resonance repels those that are misaligned. Because when you're vibrating at a specific level, right, you've always told, in order to reach the Akashic records, in order to, go to 5D, I was just talking about that, in order to go to 5D experience, you have to raise your vibration, you have to detach from things, right? So as you're vibrating, you can't go match something that goes wah, 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 if you're going wah, 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 right? And I'm not saying that I was doing that at that point, but my vibrational frequency, my resonance was higher than they were. Because let's face it, and I want you to really think about this, and this is something that I had to come to think, does a higher vibrational frequency person really want to hang out and be a part of people who are judgmental, egotistical, rude, nasty, like that are about money and showing off and cars and all that stuff? No. No. But at the time it hurts, right? At the time it really hurts. It hurts because the high frequency is disrupting the lower vibration, and that's why they're afraid of you. They're afraid of you, and you take that rejection and it makes you hurt because you're like, my frequency isn't good enough for them. But it's not, and it's not. But it's the other way around. Your frequency is more powerful than theirs, and it scares them. It creates fear because their whole life is based on money, cars, image, success. I probably got another ant crawling on me. I had a bunch of ants, and I keep my stuff clean, but I must have left something on my desk because I had ants everywhere. But you and it threatens their way of living. It threatens their way of life. And even when I told you about the pool, that I just recently got kicked off a team. Why? Because I joined this team and my sponsor was on it. He brought me on this, and one of the guys who runs the APA division in West Palm Beach, he's a real jerk, and I'm okay saying that. I still show him love and everything like that, but he has that type of personality. And so when I got brought on, I already knew something was going to happen because I could feel it. My frequency, my resonance was already pushing away. It was like, oh, this is Raina. This is not going to go good. And every week I try to talk to him and some other people. They ignored me again, like I didn't exist, like I wasn't good enough. They couldn't even look at me in the eyes and to most people, they would take that like, well, it's me, right? Not me. No, I was like, yeah, they're scared. They can't look at me in their eyes because they're insecure and they're afraid of me. Because my vibration, my strength, my power, my self-love, my self-worth, everything threatens their insecurities and threatens the image that they have built up. And so it smashed it. And then when I said, you know what, if you guys aren't going to talk to me, and I put on my headphones and started listening to music and was reading an article about quantum physics, that was just their way of just being, oh, here's an opening for us to get rid of her because I don't want her around. And you know what? That was a blessing in disguise. Because again, why do you want to be around people that treat you like that ignore you, that judge you, that don't even give you a chance, and you're playing better in pool than them? Well, you're just snow plowing them and you're running them over, and they don't like that. And so you have to be able to look and challenge yourself as a 5D individual. You have to be able to challenge yourself and look at yourself and say, well, if people talk about how they internalize it, what they're experiencing, then one of the parts about rejection is the self-talk, right? Because what's the one phrase that we all say to each other? And I said it too. Well, I must not be good enough for them, right? Because as a child, that's how I felt. Excuse me. Every day it was like, well, I must not be good enough. I must not be good enough for my mom, my dad, my sister, the schools, the kids, sports, whatever it was. I just was never good enough because I never fit in. And everyone made me feel my entire life like I was this afterthought, not good enough for their world. But what I came to find out, it was the frequency that was doing the work for me. I look at it and say, wow, what a blessing. I hated it when I was a child. I did. I hated it. I could not stand it. I was like, what is going on? Why do people hate me so much? But it was my frequency that was pushing them away. Raina, you're too young to understand. You don't need these people. They're going to hurt you. They're going to betray you. They're going to lie to you. They're going to do all these things. You don't belong in this world. You belong in a world of honesty, loyalty, sacrifice, hard work, etc. And so my frequency was constantly pushing them out. But I didn't know that. And that's why I want to do this show today. Because if you're struggling with rejection, if you've struggled with it your entire life and you're not aware of what, is going on, it's your free, and you're truly doing the work. And I'm telling you, if you're truly doing the work, I'm not talking to you people, and I'm just being honest. I'm sorry I'm not going to apologize, but I'm just being honest with you. And that if you're one of those people that are, that know everything and you don't take time to look at yourself and work on it, then I'm not talking to you. But if you're truly one of those people that are working on themselves, then you're going to experience this rejection, and you have to come to terms that the frequency that is yours is stronger than theirs, and it's naturally pushing it out of its way. I have two friends that I just recently walked away from. Dear, dear friends that I was so close to for so many years. I've known them since 2008. We first knew each other through softball. Oh, sorry, that was annoying me. A little OCD thing right there. There was a little piece of something on my keyboard, and it was just catching my eye. And I've known them through softball, and at first, for many years, it was great. But as I evolved, they didn't. And as I evolved and transformed and grew and became open-minded and tried to do stuff, they stayed in the world. And they stayed in their judgments, and they stayed in there, and they became lazier, they became unhealthy, and it was just this cycle, and they became attached to toxic relationships. Everything was always fighting with their family, fighting with their sisters, and and it was just one and no matter how much I tried to speak to them, no matter how much I tried to reach them, I couldn't. Why? Because for one, it wasn't meant for them to be reached. They're on their own frequency. They're on their own path. And I have to respect that. As much as I love them, I have to respect the path that they're in or on. But I also have to respect my path, right? And you have to respect your path. You have to be able to say, well, I'm on this trajectory now. I'm on this path. And if people aren't going to meet me, or at least trying to meet me, then I have to go my own separate way. And and it was just a buildup of missing birth. I only asked for one day of the year. The 364 days, and 1/4 day a year I devote to everybody else. But there's only one day where I'm like, okay, you got to be here. You got to be this, blah, blah. And every year it was some catastrophic event, something that the reason why they couldn't show. And it was just like one day. So I started to look at myself through this process of transformation. And I said, well, it hurts me because these are supposed to be my friends. These are supposed to be people I care about. These are people who are supposed to show me that I am good enough to be them, right? Because I've known them for so long. But again, my frequency has changed. My thought process, mental, emotional, consciousness has changed. We don't match anymore. We never really matched, but we were closer at one time. But now that there's pulling apart, all of a sudden, it's not working anymore. And I do. And still to this day, I love them. If they ever really needed something, I would be there for a heartbeat. But it's time for me, and I made this decision for me to go on my separate ways because I was getting angry and I was getting hurt. Because again, that rejection, that spiritual rejection, the conscious rejection of self was saying, well, here it is again, Raina. Look at this. Once again, it's not you're getting rejected, and now by people that love you. So this is what I mean. Relationships are meant to be shared. Friendships are meant to be shared. Family connections, all this stuff, eventually, if it's not meeting you, it's going to fall apart. Don't fight it. I get it. I had this other conversation with and this is going to get a little off track for a second, but it kind of ties in. And I sat there and I started going through this frustration period. And I sat there and I said, you know what, I was like, I feel frustrated right now. I've done the work. I've put myself through hell. I've put myself through the spiritual boot camp, the conscious boot camp. I did everything. I let go of anybody that wasn't resonating with me. I cleared out all the energetic residue. I did all the work, the emotion. I cried for days on days, so much that my soul, my cells were crying, and that there was no sound coming out. And I go and I worked through all these issues, and I go, and now I decided that this is what I want. This is where I'm at. I set the table. I lit the candles. I prepared the food. I invited the new world, the new people, everything in my life, and no one's coming. So, what's going on, right? Because as we're taught to, what the bleep do we know, and all that magical stuff. That if you just focus on something, it's going to come lickety split. It doesn't work like that either. Okay. And myself said, well, what are you waiting for? And I said, well, I'm waiting for my new group. I'm waiting for my new everything, like my life to be. And it kind of laughed and said, well, what if it's already beginning? What if it's already happening? And I'm like, but I'm not. Like, I'm going to work. I'm doing my thing. It's like, it's not. And then I had to realize that it was the projection of self. the projection of the rejection from my past. I know that was hard for me to say with my dyslexia, but the projection of my rejection. Oh, I'm going to say that again. The projection of my rejection. See, now that time I messed up. I went a little too crazy, but and that made me perceive something, but I wasn't living there. I did all the work. And then I was expecting, because that's what rejection does. Rejection makes you a loop, not just traumatizes, the brain, and you have to live in survival mode and all that, because I did. I mean, you guys know that I used to suffer with anxiety, clinical depression, suicide, bipolar 2, DID, all these different things. But the one thing that doesn't tell you is the expectations. You're always looking around the corner, hoping, waiting for the expectation of the next relationship, of the next friendship, the next family, someone that's not going to hate you, someone that's going to accept you. And this is the truth of the 5D. The 5D is self-acceptance. And I'm probably going to get emotional here, but I love myself, guys. I really do. I love myself so much. I have put myself through the ringer. I have put myself through every trial, every test, everything for me, for nobody else but me. And you know what? I accept myself because I am. And that type of personal and energetic acceptance is much stronger than anybody. I'm pointing to my outside over there. Is stronger than anybody out there that'll ever reject you. I'm so grateful for my frequency and my higher self and my guides rejecting all those people all those years, because I would have landed in judgment and chaos and pain and suffering, because those people would have done terrible things, or they would have lied and cheated and steal from me, etc. And so I look at it and I say, wow, it's your soul. Your soul is doing the sorting. Your mind your mind hasn't just recognized it. So your soul is doing all the sorting, but my mind didn't recognize it yet. And how powerful is that, right? Because now my brain finally caught up to my heart and finally caught up to my resonance and said, Raina, I protected you all these years. It may have felt like they were rejecting you, that they weren't being with you, that they didn't like you. And yeah, they didn't, but it wasn't them rejecting you. It was you rejecting them. They weren't good enough for you. They weren't honest enough for you. They weren't loyal enough for you. They weren't truthful enough for you. They didn't hold the values that you hold. And so what I did was I just pushed them away. And I looked at that when I realized that, when that finally sunk in, like not just in the brain, but in the whole body, the cells, everything, like it just awakened me even more. That was the acceptance of self. And now, like, I love that. I have my turquoise here. People make comments on it. Some love it, some don't. People judge me on my looks, my voice, etc. And like I said, hey, people, if you're one of those that are judgmental and are going to judge me for the way I look or sound, then this is definitely not the channel for you. I am only speaking to those consciously awakening people that want to grow, that see me as their equal, that see me as themselves, and want to learn as I want to learn from them. And that's the high vibrational frequency. That's the 5D experience. That is what I'm mirroring. And so now I want to ask you, because we're going to wrap up here. In a few minutes, because I know we're over 30 minutes. But what are you mirroring? Because everything in your life is a mirror of what you are experiencing, right? Because we're only, as far as the unconscious believe that we only have one perception, right? So if I'm staring at this wall or staring at this computer and there's all this stuff behind me and I only know this perception, well, then I'm going to cling to this perception as my truth, right? I'm not going to see that there's this whole other world on the sides of me and everything else and behind me and everything, because my limited perception is attached to what I see, and that's what I know and that. So what are you mirroring? Because that's, in a way, I was, when I kept that cycle going, and even though my frequency was pushing out other people, what cycle I was keeping going was that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't keeping the cycle going of getting rejected. My frequency was doing that on its own to protect me and push me and guide me to this very point. But the mirror of the self-talk, I wasn't good enough. I should be ashamed of myself. Why doesn't anyone love me? Why doesn't anyone accept me? Why am I not smart enough? Why am I not good enough? Why am I not talented enough? Why am I not pretty enough, etc.? I used to be a hot tomato a few years ago before my illness. And you know what? I'm beautiful. I'm even more beautiful than I was when people flaunted over me, but just in a different way. To 3D people, I may not be that attractive. But to 5D conscious people and people like myself, the beauty resonates within the energy. And that, when people always tell me, well, Raina, why don't you always date? I say, I don't date people. I don't date humans. I don't date third dimensional people. I fall in love with the soul, the energy, the people that are going to mirror me, the versions of myself that mirror me. Because as someone who is self-aware, I have I have boundaries and barriers and high standards, but not barriers as in like to keep people away, just to keep the people that don't deserve me out there. But I always welcome the people that do. And so now I turned my rejection into acceptance. And I found that when I aligned myself with myself, not with what other people wanted, but with myself, when I aligned myself with self and what I want to do and who I am in truth, and I don't mean as my job, but what I want to do with me, what I want to do with my evolution. And you know what? If people think that I'm too sensitive of a person, because I do. I cry. I do, and I cry hard. I was watching The Lion of Mufasa the other day, and it just spoke to me because of where I was at, and it was like the movie was talking to me, and it just let out so much energy that like I was bawling and crying, and I have no shame in that, because if people think that I'm too sensitive, then what I'm going to say to them is, you're not sensitive enough. And that's power, people. All right, everybody, that is it for today's show. Oh, God, I miss you guys. For those few out there, I'm not trying to reach billions of subscribers. I'm not trying to reach everybody. I'm just trying to reach the few that are really truly awakening, that want knowledge, and guys, write me, talk to me, man, because honestly, seriously, I want to hear about your lives as much as you guys listen to me, because that's what it's all about. But guys, I thank you so much. Seriously, like, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow us on our Facebook, I got to do the standard stuff. Follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/I Am Evolution Podcast. Our YouTube is at youtube.com. See, I haven't done this at I Am Evolution. Our TikTok is I Am Evolution 33. Visit our website, IamEvolution33.com. It's brand new. It's changed. The newsletter still isn't done. I don't feel like doing the newsletter yet, guys. I'm just getting back into doing I'm doing soul drops now. If you guys aren't aware, with the podcast, I'm doing these 10-minute videos where I'm just going to turn on the camera. They're not live, but just turn on the camera and talk about something. I don't know what's going to pop up. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to speak from my channel and see what happens. And so far, I have 2 of them. I really enjoyed it. The feedback that I got from people, they enjoyed it. So, yeah, it's great stuff. But, guys, if you have any comments or questions, please email us at IamEvolution. I Am Evolution, sorry. I am evolution33@gmail.com. My channel's coming in and out, so I'm sorry to say. And always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities and our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful day.